Welcome. It is Verdict with Senator Ted Cruz, Ben Ferguson with you. And this is going to be one of those shows that's just going to be an awful lot of fun. A good friend of mine and a great friend in the Senate of Senator Cruz has got a new book out with maybe one of the best titles for 2025, How to Test Negative for Stupid. Senator, you're in D.C., and this is just going to be one of those shows which I hope everyone enjoys as much as you and I do hanging out with our next guest.
Well, I'm very glad to welcome to Verdict John Kennedy. John is one of my dearest friends in the Senate. He is someone I am really glad came to be in the Senate. He is someone with a wicked sense of humor. He is the most dangerous cross-examiner in the entire United States Senate. And in fact, entire generations of judicial nominees and nominees from administrations have studied past John Kennedy cross-examinations. They still have PTSD from the terror that he puts in them. And this man, in addition to being brilliant as hell, is also as good a stand-up comedian as I've ever known. He's written a book. The title of the book is How to Test Negative for Stupid and Why Washington Never Will. John, welcome to Verdict. I got to say, your book sucks and it's not funny.
Well, number one, the publisher, Ted, wouldn't let me use the title I wanted. I wanted to say always. I wanted the title to be Always Be Yourself Unless You Suck. And they said, HarperCollins said, no, that's not going to work. I also got to tell one of my best Ted Cruz stories.
Uh-oh.
Ted's people invited me out. You remember this?
Oh, yeah.
He had a huge fundraiser somewhere out. It was some fancy place. I don't remember. I mean, it was the room. I mean, it was really fancy.
Rich people don't go to Motel 6.
And I'm a Motel 6 guy. And anyway, I go out there, and Ted's people said, you remember this? I said, what do you want me to talk about? They said, make fun of Ted. I said, okay. And I said, these are all of his friends. And they said, yeah, these are big, heavyweight people, okay? We're talking mega rich. So I started off, and I said, y'all know Ted. Y'all know Ted well. I said, let me tell you what you have to understand about Ted Cruz. He is really, really, really smart. But so was the Unabomber. And therein lies the problem. You can't leave him unsupervised. And all of Ted's contributors stood up and they're going, yeah, that's Ted. That's our Ted. It was great.
So John is not kidding at all.
It's really happened.
No, he's not. I was there. I was a witness to this.
And his entire lunch remarks were basically a stand-up comedy routine.
We had a great time.
And one of the things he did is he just basically went through the SEC and made fun of everybody.
It's easy.
So he started, he said, how do you get an OU grad off your front porch? Pay the man for the pizza.
I remember that.
He said, what do you call a genius in Georgia? A visitor. And then, I'm sorry, Ben, he then said, what does an Ole Miss grad get on his ACT? Drool.
We had a great time. I got him on Alabama. I said, why did Alabama raise the drinking age to 32? To keep alcohol out of the high schools. Ben, we had the best time.
And he's told that Alabama joke at our Senate Republican lunches, and Richard Shelby was chairman of the Appropriations Committee, and I'm pretty sure he pulled $1 billion out of Louisiana.
It cost me millions, man. It cost me millions, but it was worth every penny.
Well, look, John is... What I said about his cross-examination, that is not an exaggeration. I mean,
that's very kind.
It is a beautiful look. And to be honest, he has done that. He does that mostly to Democrat nominees. Mm-hmm. But he's done that to Republicans also. And one of the things people don't necessarily know, before John was in the Senate, he was a trial lawyer, and he was a hell of a trial lawyer, and he knows how to talk to a jury. John is a little bit... He's got a Southern accent, and sometimes he puts it on a little deep. But I've sort of analogized John to there's an old rule of never play poker with someone named after a state.
Yep. Yep.
And John,
Good rule.
when the draw gets deep,
Amen.
and he'll be like, well, I don't know much about that. You were about to get robbed. It's like at a poker table when someone says, now remind me, does a straight beat a flush or a flush beat a straight? Like, hold on to your wallet and run out of the door. And so when John begins cross-examining, all right, is there a cross-examination you've done in the Senate that's your favorite?
Oh, gosh. That lady, I don't remember her name, Ted. You'll remember because you beat the living hell out of her, too, that couldn't name any provision of the Constitution.
Oh, okay. She was the one that didn't know Article 5.
That's right. She was from Washington State, and she after it was over,
Jelkerin, something like that?
Yeah, she quit. And which was smart. I mean,
and then the one, okay, Article 5 is the provision, it's the part of the Constitution that lays out how constitutional amendments happen. And he asked about Article 5, and this was cruel, but then he asked, well, how about Article 2?
Yeah.
And she couldn't answer. And look, if you're not a lawyer, that doesn't seem like a question that, look, the way the Constitution's set up, Article 1 sets up the Congress. Article 2 sets up the executive and the president, and Article 3 sets up the judiciary. If you cannot answer what is Article 2, you will flunk first-year civil procedure, constitutional law. Like
you're done with.
You know,
you're a smoked turkey, man. You're dead as fried chicken.
And she had no idea. I'm pretty sure we played that cross-examination on this podcast. We played a bunch of yours, and that really was. By the way, this woman was nominated to be what's called an Article 3 judge.
Right.
And I'm pretty certain she has no idea what Article 3 is either. But it was devastating. But to be clear, look, John doesn't just do that to Democrats. There was a poor fellow who Trump nominated at the Court of Appeals.
I remember.
And
District Court. Federal District
District Court. You're right. You're right. He had been on the Federal Election Commission.
That's exactly right. Nice guy.
Nice guy, smart guy, but had no trial experience whatsoever. And I will say John's cross-examination was so devastating that they withdrew the nomination. Like, it literally at the end of that cross, they're like, okay, yeah, he's not going to be a judge.
Well, he's a nice guy, but he just wasn't ready to be a federal judge. And after it was over, the president called me. I'd flown back home. I was in New Orleans. Phone rings. You know the way it works. Unknown number.
Yeah.
You go, okay, it's White House. I'm ready to take my whipping here. So I pick up the phone, and Trump says, "Who, Kennedy? I watched your examination of this guy." He said, "Who was this guy?" I said, "Well, he's your nominee." and he said, "He doesn't sound too. Did I interview him?" And I said, "No, Mr. President, your staff did." And he said, "He doesn't seem very qualified." He said, "What do you think?" I said, "Well, Mr. President, just because you've seen my cousin Vinny doesn't qualify you to be on the federal bench." And he said, "Yeah, you're right." He said, "What do you think we ought to do?" And I said, "Well, let's put him out of his misery. I don't want to embarrass him." And the president withdrew the appointment.
Yeah. No, it was. I have never seen a cross-examination take out a nominee. Although, what was it? It was the Biden nominee who was the Russian who graduated from a Russian university, and your line was, "Should I call you comrade?"
She was nominated for a comptroller of the currency. She was a former member of the Communist Party of Russia. She had graduated from Moscow State University. And her dissertation, a copy of which she wouldn't give us, was on Karl Marx. So...
Really?
Yeah, Ben. It was, and she was, her main argument for being comptroller of the currency, which of course is responsible for all the state banks, was to get rid of all the banks and have everybody nominate, or a bank rather, from the Federal Reserve.
I want to take a moment and just talk to you real quick about an incredible opportunity for you to continue to expand your mind and learn no matter what your age is. Senator Cruz and I were at the memorial service for Charlie Kirk, and one of the people that spoke was the president of Hillsdale College. And he talked about meeting with Charlie early on and how he said, you're going to have to work hard. You're going to have to suffer. And you're going to have to continue to learn when he was so young. And he talked about all of the classes that Charlie ended up taking at Hillsdale. I immediately said, I want the listeners of this show to be able to have the same opportunity to do that. There are amazing classes: history, economics, the great works of literature, the meaning of the U.S. Constitution. And if you didn't study these things in school, or maybe you did, but you were like, just trying to check the box and make the grade when you're 20, now is a great time for you to go back and learn so much more. Hillsdale College is offering more than 40 free, I want to say that again, 40 free online courses. That's right, more than 40 free online courses. You can learn about the works of C.S. Lewis, the stories in the book of Genesis, the meaning of the U.S. Constitution. I'm doing that one. It's incredible. The rise and fall of the Roman Republic, or the history of the ancient Christian church, with Hillsdale College's free online courses. Now, I'm also looking at the Constitution 101. It's amazing, a refresher course, and you can see and explore the design, the purpose of the Constitution, the challenges it faced in the Civil War, and how it's been undermined for more than a century by progressives and liberals. This 12-lecture course is self-paced, so you start whenever you want to, and it is truly amazing. So how do you do this? You can go right now to hillsdale.edu/verdict to enroll. There is no cost, and it's easy to get started. That's hillsdale.edu/verdict, VERDICT, to enroll for free and take any one of these classes. Take advantage of it. It's free. hillsdale.edu/VERDICT, verdict, and go check out the amazing classes they have there.
All right, I got a question for both of you on this.
Shoot, man.
Has there ever been a time that you guys are both sitting there beating the hell out of someone, and do you ever look at each other and grin? Like, how does it work?
Time.
Is it like you go, then I go?
Ted goes first, and he knocks them to Pluto and softens them up. And I talk about it in my book. I think, what did I say about Ted? I said, I didn't call him articulate, though he is. I said Ted could talk a dog off a meat wagon. And he could talk the hide off a cow. And he knocks these witnesses to Pluto. And then Josh Hawley, I think, is ahead of me, goes next, and then I bat cleanup.
There's a murderer's row.
We have fun.
And it actually starts with Mike Lee. And from Mike Lee to John Kennedy,
that's right.
I mean, those are four questioners I actually feel for a witness, because that's – and they're also different styles. So I will say, Ben, one thing that you may not appreciate not being a lawyer, but John's and my legal careers are very, very different.
Uh-huh.
So I'm an appellate lawyer. And the vast majority of what I've done is argue in a court of appeals. And a court of appeals is totally different.
Very different.
So there's trial courts and courts of appeals. A court of appeals is you're standing in front of judges, typically 3 judges. If it's the Supreme Court, 9 judges. And you write a brief that is, in the Supreme Court, it's a 50-page written argument. And then your argument would usually be 30 minutes, and most of it is questioning from judges. So it's questioning about the law. You got to be quick. You got to be able to dance. I mean, being an appellate lawyer is a very precise. It's a more academic skill. It is
very academic.
Sure. A lot of law professors.
It's an intellectual discussion. That's what it is.
So a trial lawyer is what most people think of when you turn on the TV. When you think of L.A. Law or Perry Mason, like a trial lawyer, you're in a courtroom.
You're talking to a jury in a room.
You're talking to a jury. You have witnesses.
Exactly.
Like appellate lawyers don't have witnesses. You have witnesses. You got either have direct examination or cross. And so trial lawyers tend to be better storytellers. They tend to be more relatable. They're talking to Aunt Bertha in the jury pool instead of Anton and Scalia. I mean, those are different. You have different arguments to Aunt Bertha.
Scenario.
And so the 2 best trial lawyers on judiciary are John Kennedy and Lindsey Graham. Lindsey Graham is also a very talented trial lawyer.
Lindsey is very good. He has a little trouble staying on topic sometimes. I talk about Lindsey in the book. I love Lindsey. He's one of my favorites. I said one of the reasons I like Lindsey, how did I put it? He's like Ted and I. He plays out of the pocket. And you don't know what you're going to get. If you invite Lindsey to dinner, you may...
He's a great dinner companion. I mean, you will laugh.
You say, so if you invite Lindsey to dinner in your home, you may get an intellectual conversation. On the other hand, he could get drunk and vomit in the fish tank, and you don't know which. You have no idea, or both in the same evening.
What made you want to write this book? I mean, the title's hysterical, but when did you decide you want to do this, and what is it that people are going to get if they go buy this?
Well, it was about a year ago. Ted's written 4 or 5. It's a lot of work, as you well know. This
Yes.
book is not about policy per se. It's a storybook. I use stories to make my points about policy.
And by the way, all good trial lawyers and all good politicians are storytellers. I mean, if you can't tell a story, you don't belong in this business.
That's right. Some of the stories, I think, more than some, frankly, are funny. Some of them are bizarre. They're all true. And I use the stories to make 3 points. Number one, I want people to understand through the stories what the Senate is really like behind the scenes.
And basically think Mean Girls. It's not even high school. It's a junior high. It's catty. They're cliques. They're popular kids. They're the geeks, the jocks. Like it.
Ted nailed. It's like high school, but nobody ever gets out of the sophomore year. And the second reason I wrote the book, I wanted to help people understand in real time why in Washington normal is just a setting on the clothes dryer. This place is a different world. And the third reason I wrote it was to try to make people understand that it doesn't have to be this way. If we have a return to common sense, but I also don't bubble wrap it. The water in Washington D.C. is not going to clear up until you get the pigs out of the creek. That's just the way it is. And look, some people like the book, some don't. I'm really proud. It's doing well.
All right, and so I gave him some grief, but it is a terrific book. It is funny. He's telling very real stories. You look at the front; he looks grumpy on the front. That picture you picked, you
I didn't pick it. The publisher picked it.
You look kind of like your stomach's upset, but you look like you're getting ready to rip someone a new one. Is what it looks like. And so let me encourage everyone who's listening to this or watching this, go to Amazon, go to Barnes & Noble, buy the book, buy one. So look, it's fixing to be November. It's Christmas season. Buy 2 or 3 books. Buy a book to give it.
I love this guy.
Give it to your mom. This is a great present. And actually, you can give your family members an autograph copy because, see, John's from Louisiana, so he can't actually sign his signatures. Or just put an X, and it'll look real.
I ripped through them. Just put that X, and it's my X.
And by the way, if you have a liberal uncle, buy this for him. It'll piss him off. It'll be the best present you can put under the tree.
Well, I hope the book. I spent a lot of time on it. I hope it'll make people think. It may make you laugh. It's the truth. It may make you day drink because I don't sugarcoat it. And I talk about a lot of different senators. I don't try to be mean. But I talk about Thune. I talk about President Trump. I talk about President Biden. I talk about Senator Grassley. I talk about Chuck Schumer. I think Chuck got a little mad at me because I described him as, imagine a 5-year-old in a Batman costume. I said, that's on a sugar high. That's how Chuck is when he gets excited. And I talked some about Mitch. I explained that Ted and I think we were together. We saw Mitch smile once back in 2017. But
once. Just one
once.
time. Broke news.
I talk about the time I really almost got in trouble on this. Mitch was not amused. But I was asked to compare Mitch McConnell and Chuck Schumer. And I told the truth. I said they have a lot in common. Each is very smart. Each is very tenacious. And each of them could lose his place during sex. Well, my office, Mitch was a majority leader then. And
how'd that go, by the way, after? I'd love to see that phone call.
It was a wonder. I was pretty sure my office was going to be moved to Richmond, as I recall. But anyway, I had fun writing it, but it was...
And to be clear, that's not the only joke John Kennedy is told about his colleagues having sex. So at my donor retreat, Ben, you will remember this. John stood up in front of everyone and he said, you know, Ted told me about his first sexual experience.
Oh, I remember this one.
And everyone starts looking and going, wait, where is this going? And he said, he was young. It was dark. He was scared. He was alone.
You have to think about that. And the folks in the audience, it took them about 5 seconds. They said, okay, we get it. We get it.
Yeah, we get it. We're all there
and
now.
I have to admit, I turned to Heidi and I said, wait a second. I paid to fly John here. Like, out of my campaign money, I paid his airline travel.
We had a good time. We had a good time.
That's what happens when you bring a small-town Louisiana boy back to the big leagues, you know, with all the highfalutin donors out there.
We had a good time.
I got to ask you, in your book, one of the cool things is you talk about being a small-town guy. Is it Jeffrey? Is that right, Louisiana?
No, Zachary.
Okay, gotcha. All right, so I actually think there's something interesting that's happening in the country right now, and I want to get your take on it. I think small-town America had been overlooked for so long, forgotten, referred to flyover country. I think there's a huge pendulum swinging right now in this country where rural America is mattering now a lot more than it has in my lifetime. Small-town America is being listened to now and has a voice that they haven't had in a long time. The mainstream media has lost a lot of their power to influence and to try to act like only big cities matter and the rest of the country doesn't. Are you seeing the same thing? And as you look back at your career, your life, where you came from, do you see that there's I think a big glimmer of hope right now that small town America is actually being listened to for once in Washington, D.C.?
Well, small town America is America. When I grew up in Zachary, there's about 3,000 people.
Now, what part of the state is Zachary?
Zachary's sort of just north of Baton Rouge.
Okay.
The people of Zachary, when I grew up there, and it's still the case, Ted, you know these folks. They get up every day, they go to work, they obey the law, they pay their taxes, try to save a little money for retirement, try to do the right thing by their kids. They don't read Aristotle every day. They don't have time. They're earning a living.
Now, is Zachary a pretty rural town? Is a lot of farm and ag, or what do people do for a living
some
there?
Farm, some ag, but it's about 30 miles north of Baton Rouge, so you could call it a suburb, but that sounds too affluent. But these are real folks, and they don't read Aristotle every day, but they get it. And I remember thinking during the Biden administration, have these people ever been any place but California, Washington, and New York?
Yep.
They all in Washington, President Biden's people, they all thought they were smarter and more virtuous than everybody else. And their attitude toward rural America was, we're smarter than you, we're more virtuous than you, shut up and send us your money and all your freedom, and we'll tell you how to live your life. And I think that's the genesis of part of President Trump's support.
Absolutely.
I mean, Trump picked up on that early on, and even though he's a billionaire, and even though he's a New York developer, he doesn't talk down to people.
Yeah.
He doesn't talk down.
No, he's very real. He communicates.
Yeah.
He tells you exactly what he thinks. You never know what he's going to say because he's liable to say anything. He is funny as hell. He actually doesn't get credit for the sense of humor he has, but he can say things that'll just be side-splittingly funny.
I was with him about a week before his debate with President Biden and Jake Tapper and Dana Bash. Mm-hmm. And it was the two from CNN and Biden. And I said, well, what do you think, Mr. President? He said, Kennedy, I don't know. I got Tapper, I got Bash, and I got Joe Biden. It's going to be 2.5 to 1.
That's funny.
It was and right off the cuff. And I am laughing so hard. He's just 2.5 to 1. And then, of course, they had the infamous debate.
Yeah.
And President Biden just crumpled. But I talk about President Trump in the book. I've got a different style than him.
Sure.
I told the president.
So does everybody else.
So does everybody else. I mean, it's clear that the president's unfiltered. He grows anxious when he has an unexpressed thought. He can't. I told him one time. He said, "Well, how do you like my tweets, Kennedy?" And I said, Mr. President, I got to be diplomatic here. I said, tweeting a little bit less would not cause brain damage. And he said, what? You don't like my tweets? I said, no.
Hold on. What year did you tell him this?
It was
because this could have been profound.
It was in his first term. And
okay,
well,
so
and I will say his second term, his tweets have gotten much more disciplined.
Yes,
there's a very different discipline from the first term.
In his first term, he let it rip.
Yep.
And
we added thank you for your attention to this matter. Like it's a completely different man in 4 years.
But he didn't get it, and he didn't know whether to be offended or what. And he said, "What do you mean?" And I said, "Look, Mr. President, look at it this way. I like steak, but I don't like to eat 8 steaks at one time." And he said, "You don't like my tweets." I said, "No, I didn't say that." And of course, it made no difference. He just.
All right, now let me ask, you're growing up, little town in Louisiana, did you always know that you wanted to be a lawyer?
No.
Did your parents lawyers and lawyers in the family?
My parents really emphasized education, Ted, just like yours. Mm-hmm. But when I wasn't studying, I cared about 2 things. I cared about basketball and I cared about cheerleaders.
Are you a ball player?
And
did you play hoops in high school?
I played hoops.
What position?
Forward.
All right. How's your jump shot, ball handling?
Jump shot, man.
Well, I still play twice a week.
I know you do. I've seen you come in the cloakroom. He comes in the cloakroom to vote, and he's all worked up and sweaty, and he's beating up on somebody. But Cruz,
Senator, I'm going to advise you right now: don't take the bait when he asks you to play. Because I've already had a broken bone from taking that break.
It is true. We broke Ben's finger.
Cruz is a total baller
it's
now.
Still a crooked.
He's a total baller.
What I got to ask you, Ben, so you broke your pinky. Where exactly did you have your pinky stuck?
Here's what I know. When I broke my pinky, we were at one of them highfalutin houses, and I thought about calling Kennedy to say, will you represent me? Because I thought you could have gotten me a really good settlement.
Yeah, it was a tech billionaire's house that you broke your pinky and you didn't even get tape on it.
I would
nothing. I powered through like a real athlete.
Dan, you should have called me. We'd have gotten you a beach house out of this.
I could have been just
Ted
hanging
would have
out
handled
on the beach
appeal.
right
I'd take it to trial court. We might have gotten you 2 beach houses, man.
So for the last several weeks, you've heard me talk with Josh Sherrard from Byrna about real stories of how people like you and I have used their Byrna launcher to protect themselves and their families. Now, Byrna is a handheld pistol that fires both kinetic rounds and chemical irritants to separate you from an attacker. Josh is back with me today to tell you a real story about a Byrna launcher that was used and how it helped a woman protect herself from a home intruder.
So a Chicago woman was recently the victim of a home invasion that occurred in broad daylight when several men broke into her home while she was inside in the middle of the day, and it was all caught on video. So while sitting in her kitchen, the homeowner began hearing strange noises coming from the front door. So she went to investigate and saw that intruders had made it inside her home, at which point she yelled that she'd called police to try and scare them off. Now, fortunately, in this case, it worked, and they promptly exited the house. And the victim and a neighbor actually chased the intruders down the street while calling 911. While on the phone with 911, dispatchers told the homeowner that police were on their way. However, it ended up taking police over 4 hours to reach the scene due to an overwhelming backlog of emergency calls. It was only sheer luck in this case that she wasn't hurt or killed.
And this is where you ask the question, is Byrna something that could have been used in that situation for home defense? And how could she have deployed it to keep herself safe and deter those attackers?
Absolutely. In this case, she lucked out and she was able to call their bluff and they ran off. But in many cases, that's not going to happen. Any kind of resistance has to be used to get those attackers out and to get you to safety. Byrna Max or kinetic rounds both would have allowed her the time to get out and get somewhere safe.
It is really an incredible option, and I have a Byrna. I have real handguns as well, but I always have a Byrna. And if you want to see what it can do to protect you and your family or a loved one that you know needs this, go to Byrna, BYRNA.com. Again, that's Byrna, BYRNA.com, Byrna.com right now. I know you got to run, Senator, soon, but I want to ask you one other question.
Sure, ask me anything you want.
And it goes back to the book. When you write this book and you sit down to do it, who did you envision reading it? Is there some bigger purpose where you're like, I want to write this for the future generation? Was part of it just I want to just tell my story and how I got to where I am today? What was it?
Here's what I did. I sat down with a handheld dictaphone at my kitchen table, and I started dictating. And I dictated, I don't know how many hours, hundreds of hours. And then I had it transcribed, and then I put it together, and then I had an editor come in who looked at it and rearranged it. And then I just started editing. And I was speaking to the same person that Ted and I both speak to when we do interviews, the average American. And I tried to speak plainly. I don't try to muddy the water to make it look deep. The American people don't have time for that. And I wanted them to understand that if you get mad, I can't help it. I have the right to remain silent, but God did not give me the ability. And some people are going to like it and some don't. But that's what the American people expect from their politicians today. And it's one of the reasons that Senator Schumer, who Ted and I both know, he's right now, he's got 30% approval rating. He's got a 60% disapproval rating. The other 10% won't pause their video game to answer the pollster's call. And Chuck is polling, he's polling right up there with clubbing baby seals. That's, I mean.
But to be fair, he's still above chlamydia.
He's still above. He's still above. It's
barely,
marginal.
neck and
it's
neck.
Close. But because Chuck's been here so long, Ted, you know this, he's been here so long, he sounds like Washington.
So I will say it's interesting. You and I have a very similar process, it sounds like, for writing a book, because that's very much the books I've written. And some of it may be being a lawyer and having written briefs, that process of recording and telling stories. In my books, I just try to tell stories because that's how people communicate.
I've read a couple of your books. There's a difference between you and me, though. I've written one book. Ted's written about a squillion. Okay, but it's hard. I mean, I'm not. It is a painful process.
You know, all right, you're a kid. When does the idea of being a lawyer, what was it that made you say, hey, I can do that, I want to do that?
My dad was from a Depression family in Oklahoma. He got a degree, worked his way through college in petroleum engineering, came to Louisiana to work in the oil fields, married my mom. I have 3 brothers. From day one, they drilled into us, education, education, education. And it wasn't where you're going to go to college, or when you're going to go to college, it was where.
Right.
And that was drilled in from day one. And I enjoyed college, but I started thinking about law school then. But I stalled and restalled Ted as long as I could. I mean, I spent 4 years in college, and then I went 3 years in law school, and then I clerked for a federal judge, and I tried to get a Supreme Court clerkship. I didn't. You did.
Yep.
And then I said, well, I'm not ready for the real world. I'm going back to school. I went back and got another law degree at Oxford.
Yep.
And then finally I was out of money, and I wanted to eat and live indoors. So I didn't want to live in a refrigerator box behind an Outback, so I had to go to work for a living.
And Ben, I know something that I know you don't know. I know the name of his old law partner.
Who is that?
Who's that?
So he would practice. His name obviously is John Kennedy, and his partner was Jose Canseco. And he'd walk in, and it'd be John Kennedy and Jose Canseco here to see you.
Story. That's a true
and they
story.
would double take.
One of my best friends, I was for Louisiana, a big law firm, 680 lawyers, and one of my good friends was Jose Canseco. And we'd go to meetings.
That's amazing.
I'd say, I'm John Kennedy, this is Jose Canseco, we're here to see so-and-so. And they would say, you're here to see security, sir. True story.
All right, so when did you get the idea in your head you wanted to run for office? Was this something like as a kid you always wanted to do?
I always thought about it. But I was practicing law, earning a good living. Louisiana politics was rough. I mean, it was rough. It was under Governor Edwin Edwards. I wasn't part of his clique.
Who has my favorite political bumper sticker ever.
Yep.
And you know exactly where I'm going. Do you know this, Ben? I don't know if you know this.
I do not.
So Edwin Edwards is running for governor against David Duke. Now, David Duke was the former Grand Wizard of the KKK.
Grand Wizard, right?
But Edwin Edwards was as corrupt. He was as crooked as a dog's hind leg. See, I'm trying to do this to keep up with John Kennedy.
Pretty good, Ted.
And everyone knew he was corrupt. And so Edwin Edwards' bumper sticker said, "Vote for the crook. It matters."
That's right.
And if you're running against a Klansman, that was a winning slogan.
Yeah.
And then you know what? He was indicted and convicted of embezzlement or fraud or
when
something.
the economy was doing well in Louisiana, I mean, this was having a colorful governor was all fun and games. He was a big. He was very promiscuous. He used to say, they make. How did he put it? When I give blood, they use it to make Viagra. That was a. I always thought that was a pretty good. And
There's a bumper sticker
Okay,
for
that's
you.
a line they would have used about Strom Thurmond,
Yeah.
too. You and I didn't serve with Strom Thurmond, but by all accounts, that would have described him accurately.
And he was running for governor, I think his third time, and he was way ahead in the polls. He was running against the incumbent, and the press asked him, they said, "Are you going to win this race?" And he said, "Well, let me put it this way. The only way I can lose this race in the last week is if I'm caught in bed with a live girl or a dead boy." And I thought that was pretty clever. But eventually his past caught up to him, and we elected a reform governor named Buddy Romer. I'd supported him. He asked me to leave my practice, come to Baton Rouge, and I liked it.
Mm-hmm.
I was his legal counsel, and I stayed, and then I ran for office and got elected, and I ran for the Senate 3 times. Took me 3 times to get here, and I thought they left me for dead for a few times politically. I switched parties because the Democrat, I just couldn't be a Democrat anymore, and they all got mad at me, and they tried to hurt me, but the mistake they made, they let me live. They never should have let me
love
live.
it.
So I won it on the 3rd time, and here we are. We're having fun.
All right, biggest surprises when you get to the Senate. Biggest surprise upside and biggest surprise downside.
Biggest surprise upside, you probably saw this. I came in wanting to gallop. You can't gallop in the Senate. You have to inch along. And at first that frustrated me. It still does. But it's not altogether bad, because after a while you realize the senator's job is not just to advance good ideas. It's to kill bad ideas. And sometimes killing the bad ideas is more important than advancing the good ideas. That has been my biggest transformation in the Senate. But it's frustrating. Senator McConnell is your friend and mine, but Mitch was the majority leader, and I wasn't used to taking orders from another politician. And Mitch and I butted heads a few times. He butted heads with you.
Oh, yeah.
Mitch liked to run it from the top down. And I remember you and I talked when we passed President Trump's Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. We passed it through reconciliation. And Ted was an advocate of doing a second bill.
Yep.
And it just took a majority vote, no Democrats. And I backed him. And Mitch wouldn't do it. And we left so much good policy on the table.
It remains the most politically indefensible decision I've ever seen.
And I hope we don't do it under Trump's second term.
And actually, John brought that up at lunch today.
Yeah.
Made that argument, and it's clearly, look, it is our best avenue to win victories, and we should be focused on winning victories. Now, that being said, we got a lot done in that one big beautiful.
Sure. But we get a second bite at the apple.
Exactly, and a third if we want it.
And why not take it?
Yep.
Why not take it? And we don't have to get Democratic votes.
Yep.
Because I want to think the best of people, but I just think it's going to be hard to negotiate anything with the Democrats from here on out.
They just hate Trump. They're so extreme right now.
They're just blinded by their passion.
Yep.
Senator, I'm afraid of hitmen from Louisiana. Your staff's telling me we were supposed to wrap with you a few minutes ago, so I want to hold up the book again. Senator,
oh man,
do
thanks.
That.
All right.
People,
so let me tell
people
everyone
know
again.
Know what to buy.
The book is How to Test Negative for Stupid and Why Washington Never Will. It is by John Kennedy, not John F. Kennedy, but John Kennedy, the great United States Senator. The book is funny. It is interesting. It gives you stories behind the scenes of what's going on in the U.S. Senate. John Kennedy rats out all his colleagues. He makes them embarrassed. He makes them curl up. Chuck Schumer curled up in a ball in the closet and cried like a little girl when John Kennedy wrote this book. So you need to go to Amazon and buy it. And I will say, as I said before, John Kennedy is easily one of my favorite colleagues. He is
right back at you, man.
Funny as hell, and he is smart as hell. A lot of people don't realize this man is dangerous and has, he's an Oxford-educated lawyer, and with a Southern accent, particularly Yankees underestimate and be like, all right, he's got a Southern accent, he can't be all that bright.
You can't accuse me of being self-aware, not being self-aware. I'm fully aware that my voice scares small children and sets off car alarms, but it's my voice. But thank you for having me, Ted. Thank you, Ben.
And I'm going to close. I'm going to close with my favorite Kennedyism, which was in a Judiciary Committee hearing. John Kennedy leaned forward into the microphone, and he said, "Christmas tree ornaments and Jeffrey Epstein, two things didn't hang themselves."
I love it.
I was sitting there going, wait, this is at an open hearing of the Senate Judiciary Committee. Did he really say that?
I did. It was true. I'd read that joke somewhere. It seemed like a good idea at the time. Thank you, guys.
Buy the book wherever you can, How to Test Negative for Stupid. Get it on Amazon. Don't forget, you can get this podcast Monday, Wednesday, Friday, wherever you get your podcast. Share it on social media. Senator Cruz and I will see you back here in a couple of days, and grab the book right after this as well.